Hi, everybody. I am Jen Johnson, and you are watching Thought by Thought Healing, where I talk about everything related to chronic pain and chronic symptoms. I come at it from a Christian perspective, and so if that's important to you, then you are definitely in the right place, and you should subscribe. And if you're listening to this on podcast platforms, I would love if you would leave me a review. That is how we get this hope out there. I am a chronic pain coach and help people to understand how neuroscience really is showing that when we target the brain, emotions, beliefs, or thoughts, we really can interrupt the physiology that is causing the chronic pain or the other chronic symptoms. So today I am interviewing Mackinze Kennedy. Mackinze and I were able to take a course with Howard Schubiner together a while back and have stayed friends and in touch, although we have actually never met each other in person, which is kind of funny. So I hope you guys enjoy just hearing her journey out of chronic pain and how she kind of perceives it and how she talks about it, and also how she incorporates it into her massage therapy. I hope you enjoy, and I hope it is inspiring. I will see you guys next week. Bye. All right, everybody, here we are. I am just thrilled to have Mackinze Kennedy with me. Mackinze, thanks for showing up.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So Mackinze and I met while we were taking a course from Howard Schubiner. It was Freedom from Chronic Pain. We took it as practitioners, and it was absolutely fantastic. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, completely changed the trajectory of my work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It's funny, do you remember how we met?
No.
Neither do I.
Hey, kind of. I think we did like the breakout rooms sometimes, and
Uh-huh.
I don't know if we were ever put in one together. But then there was an email list, like anybody that wants to keep in touch. And somehow I was like, we were both like, yes. And that group ended up being kind of small, which was nice, a little like more intimate.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think I think that's what it was.
I think I was trying to figure that out today. I was like, did we meet in a breakout room, or did we meet in because then after Freedom from Chronic Pain was over, we kept meeting on a weekly basis for quite a while with a couple other people,
Yeah.
which was
I think
really
that's kind
fun.
of where, I mean, I recalled your face from you, you speaking up in the big groups too. And
Mhm.
so, and I remember
Yeah.
thinking, this is before I like fully coined myself as a coach because I didn't really know what to call myself yet. And I
Mhm.
remember you were like, I'm a chronic pain coach. And I was like, that's a thing. Oh my gosh. She's got it. I love it.
And
So
you're like, that's what I am too.
that's what I guess I am. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
Cool.
good stuff. So.
Well, let's go back a little bit before you became a coach. I also want to talk about that journey because I think it's interesting to hear
Yeah.
your story from massage therapist to whatever you're calling yourself now. You're still combining it with massage therapy, right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
am.
Okay.
Hmm.
So hopefully we'll get into that later, but
Yeah.
tell me just a little bit about your story before you discovered mind body syndrome, and yeah, just a little bit of that journey.
Yes. Well, let's see. I personally have had TMS or mind body symptoms. I think dating back from like before I can even remember. So like being a little child and having symptoms and sensations and things like that. I'm just a very sensitive person, I think.
Hmm.
And so yeah, just that was always like part of my life. I think growing up, my family, like always trying to figure out what was wrong with me, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was never anything that was like debilitating per se, but just, I had symptoms. Um, and so, yeah, they were just present throughout my life, my childhood, my adolescence, my adulthood. And I never, and then obviously being a massage therapist and just, the world that we live in, it was always in my mind, it was always like, oh, okay, well, I have a headache, I have migraines. It's probably from the chocolate that I ate and that I was in the sunshine. Or, oh, my low back hurts. It's probably from that workout I did. It, I didn't, I
Mm.
just didn't have the information of the mind body unit. And so forever was chasing my symptoms and being concerned about them. Um, the typical like TMS spirals that most people get into when we have pain in our bodies. We want to figure it out, and it can be
Solve
scary
it.
and yep, and be frustrating. So that was, and also just like living with it and thinking like, this is my life. I'm always going to have the shoulder pain. I'm always going to have all these little things and sometimes big things. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that's kind of where I was. And then actually curable was what
Mm.
opened my eyes to something different. Wait, I take that back. I come from I come from like a very um, spiritual and very alternative and metaphysical family. So like that sort of healing has always been part of my life, including like Louise Hay. You know Louise Hay? Uh,
No.
okay, so she's like the queen of kind of mind body, but in a bit of a spiritual sense.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so she has these books. One's called You Can Heal Your Life and You Can Heal Your Body. And it's basically she believed that she made it very generalized, but that different ailments in different parts of the body and pain in different parts of the body typically mean that you're believing something or you're having a certain thought. And it a lot of times can be, she generalized it. And so then she put in this book, like, oh, if you have ulcers, this is typically what you're believing. And then here's an affirmation to say to heal yourself. And so that was present in my life
Okay.
years ago. However, as you know, it sometimes isn't that simple just to be like, well, I'm just going to say this affirmation. And affirmations are amazing, but it wasn't like the cure all, right?
Yeah.
So, and yeah, so that was just kind of present. And then, yeah, I found curable and
Okay.
everything shifted.
So what kind of, well, I'm curious about two things. What kind of symptoms did you experience? And before we were on this call, we were talking about how we want to be careful to not trigger people because our minds are very susceptible to
Mhm.
symptoms
Yep.
and suggestible.
Mhm.
So, but we all want to know that our symptom can be healed. And so, um, a lot of times people are just searching to hear of somebody who had a similar symptom than theirs, and they healed from it. So if you don't mind just sharing, I think we have similar kind of laundry lists of like the amount of things that we discovered were mind body.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you got?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with, and I'm not gonna go in details of like when and how and the whole story, but I
Yeah.
will say in my childhood, most of the time it was headaches.
Mm.
Um, it- to the point that, my parents, okay, let's go to the eye doctor, let's get brain scans, let's do all of these things. Headaches, I would get stomach aches, and they gave me like omeprazole, and like, the
Mhm.
normal stuff that we get at the doctor. So headaches and stomach aches, um, and wrist pain. I broke my wrist when I was a
Mhm.
little kid, and that then was drawn out for years.
Okay.
So those were like, I feel like my primary as a child.
Yeah.
But then like, yeah, that laundry list, she big for me. Um, Migraines, headaches, shoulder pain, low back pain, like my low back I've experienced that where it goes out, can't
Yeah.
walk in a situation. Rib pain, that was interesting.
Okay.
Pelvic pain, chronic yeast infection, um, acne. That's been an
Mhm.
interesting one. That's more recent. I'm like in my 30s and that popped up and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Hello.
Yes.
Um, ulcers, dental sensitivity, like tooth. Yep. That's an interesting one that I kind of was like, oh, okay. But that's
Yeah.
okay. Um, neck pain, like, tension, pretty much all of it. Tendinitis, knee pain,
Yeah.
plantar fasciitis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like name it, kind of, not to like diminish anybody else's like experience, but yeah, I've had most of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. I hope that it's encouraging for somebody.
Mhm.
Um, so as you're going through all this stuff, did you do, even though you had this experience of knowing that there is a mind-body connection growing up, did you go to the doctor at all? Did you rule out any of this stuff as being like structurally caused and therefore stuck with it?
Yeah. Growing up, I did. My parents took me to, all sorts. Honestly, I remember I went to a lot of doctors as a kid.
Okay.
And they were trying to like understand, and it's good that they did that, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember as a teenager, it's so interesting, like looking back on our stories of like when certain pains came up in our lives and what was going on. Um, I had really bad shoulder pain, and I was like, in show choir, so I was a singer dancer, and I came to a point where I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to be involved in that, and my shoulder
Mm.
pain was so bad that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But my deepest deep feelings was I didn't actually want to. So it worked out for me in that way. I had a reason, an excuse in a way.
Okay.
So went to the doctor for that, got MRIs, all that business. And then yeah, like throughout different symptoms, I did seek out different medical attention, but I never really got any extreme diagnoses.
Okay.
And there were times when it's like if it was back pain or hip pain. I mean, I've been a massage therapist since I was like 19 or 20. So it's like, oh, we go to the chiropractor. Oh, we go get it figured out in this way. We get a massage.
Yeah.
So I didn't really, my situation it didn't elevate into going and getting scans. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. And then you mentioned being a sensitive person as a child.
Hmm.
And also, this idea of trying to figure out what was wrong with you and going to doctors. Um, first of all, what do you mean by being a sensitive child? Yeah,
Hmm.
let's go there.
Okay. Yeah. I think, okay, what I mean by that is I was emotionally sensitive. I was very shy. I was very curious about the world, but cautious. Um, I was a worrywart. I still have tendencies in that. So yeah, we're diving into the kind of personality traits of a
Yes.
TMS and mind body person.
Yeah.
But yeah, even as a kid, sensitive, just I think also very empathetic. Being around others, I was highly and am highly sensitive to what's going on in my surroundings, both in with people and animals and just what's going on. So I think my nervous system has just been, I don't know if well, I've learned a lot about ancestral and kind of like epigenetics and things like that we get from our families, as well as trauma. I mean, our stories are so complex as far as where things begin, but mine began, I think, even as like a baby, just sensitive, just aware, just afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Okay, so fast forward, putting a pin in that,
Yeah.
and then fast forwarding, you discover curable. You
Hmm.
start heading down this path. Um, how does that go for you? And yeah, just talk about that part of your journey.
Yeah, sure. Um, well, yeah, so I discovered Curable. I think probably yeah, it was through a targeted ad on social media. And
Thank you.
yes, thanks to social media, and yes, they work. Um, and thank goodness, because it really did change my life.
Yeah.
I downloaded the free version of the app, and then I was like, whoa, this is real. I started listening to the podcasts that they offer, and started, yeah, just uncovering a whole bunch of stuff for myself. I will mention that I also have been in therapy for, gosh, 6 years. So it's interesting because a lot of the tools, particularly journaling, or as my therapist calls it, puke on paper, um, they were similar, right? And there was a lot of, it was met with a lot of resistance for me initially, and sometimes
Okay.
still is. I think that that's a normal part of the process.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, resistance and then breaking through, and then resistance and breaking through was kind of part of my path.
Hmm.
And but it all just made absolute sense to me, like crystal clear, like, oh my goodness, yeah, absolutely. This is
Yeah.
the answer. This is it. Um, and so I just feel like, there's just no other way for me now,
Yeah.
right? To work through my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
That resistance, how do you talk about that? How do you interpret that? How do you put that to words when, because I know this is my story too, still, I
Uh-huh.
I know that when I am going through something, the best thing for me to do is to write. And for me, I write in a specific way that pulls me out of fear. Uh, but I will resist it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm curious how you unpack that for yourself.
Oh, I think, you know, I think it's part of the process, as like strange as that sounds, but if you think about your pain and your symptoms being there to protect you in a way, and your
Yep.
nervous system is, thinking that there's danger somewhere, in some way in our lives, and our pain turns on in response to that. Well, I feel like resistance also is that, right? The fear of going to the depths, the fear of, it's fear a lot of times, but it's also,
Mhm.
sometimes you're in kind of like, sometimes disbelief, or
Mm.
sometimes, oh, I can just power through it, or, oh, it just seems like sometimes you think that there are other options,
Yeah.
um, but they're not. So yeah, but I do think resistance is part of it.
Yeah.
And it's not fun, and it's frustrating when you are like, but I know what the answer is. I know what actually helps me. Why am I not doing that?
Yeah.
And what's been helpful for me is, that's where like self-compassion comes in big time for me. Of like, if there's a day where I'm feeling garbagey, and I feel like, and I know I should be doing something like journaling or like feeling my feelings, and I'm not, but the idea of, I start beating myself up about it, that step, if I can at least take out that step, it feels like, um, that can be the biggest, most helpful thing, is
Yeah.
like, instead of saying like, you should be doing this, why are you not doing this? This is what helps you. If I can calm that inner critic down and say like, we're not doing that right now. And it just is what it is. And so we're going to watch a movie, and we're going to be real kind to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And wrap up and just be in it, honestly, be in the suffering. I think sometimes that's important, in the physical suffering too. Um, and
Mm.
then, gosh, the next day comes, and you're like, oh, I feel a little better. And
Yeah.
you realize, oh, maybe that's because I wasn't a jerk to myself yesterday. And then it's like, okay, we can journal now. We can do this. Let's bring it up. Let's do it. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Yeah.
Yes. I heard somebody describe this as beating yourself up for beating yourself up. So,
Yeah.
and you're just like compounding the
Hmm.
danger that you're experiencing, and now it's from yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there comes a place in the journey where you're like, oh, tomorrow's going to be better. Like,
Hmm.
and that's a really kind Speaking of self-compassion, that's a really kind way of treating yourself too, to know like, okay, this is not going to be forever. It's going to be okay. And like you're saying, like sometimes that just gives you the encouragement to do the writing tomorrow, or the feeling of the feelings, or the slowing down. I think
Mhm.
for me, one of the things that stops me from writing is this I just have this hurried thing where it's like, if I stop to do true self-care, then I might not get as much done today. And
Mm,
that is just terrible for my nervous system. Like
yeah.
my brain thinks that that's the worst thing in the world, to not get as much done as you could potentially get done. And so I will prioritize, the to-do list over the journaling.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question
Yeah.
about your personal healing journey?
Yeah.
What if you could identify with like some of the TMS personality traits, what were yours and what are yours? Because I know they kind of
Yeah.
oftentimes they still live within us, but we're just not we're not they're not unbalanced, right? We're not letting them
Yeah.
just rule our lives. What do you think that yours
Yeah, I do think people pleasing, in
Mhm.
certain, it's very categorical for me. So it's not across the board that I'm a people pleaser. It's certain people that certain
Okay.
types, I guess, of people. And perfectionism is also in specific areas of my life and not in others. And then efficiency and
Mhm.
that urgency, is a really, that is a big one for me. This need to get done. There's some sort of value that makes me safe in that. So I have worked really hard on those, which I would love to talk about with you. Like how how have you worked on them? For me, visualizing is a huge part of kind of adapting those personality traits, so that, because personality traits, all they have a positive side to them,
Mhm.
and then they go bad real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, so those are my three. Which three do you kind of claim?
Yeah. People pleasing for sure.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like pleasing most people. If you
Okay.
come in contact with me, I would like you to like me. So,
I would like you
and
to like me.
um,
Okay.
and make sure that you're having a good time. Which it's yeah, strengths and weaknesses, right? Because I can also be seen as an includer, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
let's make sure we're all just included in this life and this experience. And it
Yeah.
can also be really detrimental to my well-being. So people pleasing. I think tendencies to worry
Okay.
are a big one for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Like
and
catastrophizing.
yeah,
Yeah.
catastrophizing. Yep, going to worst case scenario
Yeah.
without any sort of logic behind it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, maybe self-critical. I
Yeah.
know it's in general, but it pops up in different ways for me.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And then as far as like the navigation of that, I think
Mhm.
that the biggest part is the identification and the awareness, obviously, because you
Yeah.
can't change anything you're not aware of, right? If we have a broken record just spinning, but we don't know that it's broken, it's just
Yeah.
gonna, keep, yeah. So, yeah, that awareness, bringing it to light, really, has been really helpful for me. Uh, Go ahead.
Bringing it to light, does that help you to start to change it, or does it just reduce the symptoms around it?
So, I think maybe a little bit of both. Um,
Okay.
it's How do I say this? So, as far as my physical symptoms that I have experienced in my life, I have also experienced, what do I say, mental, emotional symptoms as well, and just difficulty, as we all do, I think, right?
Yeah.
So navigating them for me has been really a similar process. It seems like if you work, uh, if you work with your emotions and your thoughts, that's going to help. your
Yeah.
body, typically, right? We calm the nervous system. So,
Mhm.
so for me, it's exploring them, bringing them to light, uh, identifying what it is that I am thinking and feeling. And then with that, kind of inquiry, a little bit of, maybe in the moment it needs to be, oh, that's my inner 10-year-old who's super freaked out about this. Okay, let's sit with her. Let's like some parts work.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes it's that inner critic that comes out, that's who's kind of ruling the moment, and we work with that in a certain way. Sometimes it's questioning the validity of that thought, or telling it to step off, like, I got it. I hear that that's what you want, but we can think something else. I also really like the work of Byron Katie. I don't know if you've heard of them, her.
I'm not sure.
She has like a practice, basically. She calls it the work, and
Okay.
it is self-inquiry. So it's like you identify a statement that you are, that feels like a hard thought that you've been having, and then she has there's several steps to it, and it's amazing if you want to look into it. But basically, it's inquiring the truth behind it. If you can put a question mark behind whatever statement it is, like whatever thought it is that you're responding to, they can really turn things around.
Hmm.
Does that make
Because
sense?
it's less like factual, and then you're more considering, is this thing true or not? Do I want to hold
Literally.
on to this thing? Yeah.
And one of the questions you ask yourself with it is, can I absolutely know that this is true?
Mm.
And then there are other questions like, who would I be without this thought?
Mm.
It
Mhm.
just gives you freedom, right? To realize like, oh, I don't have to believe that, you
Yeah.
know, there's a lot of other options available to me.
Right.
Bringing choice into what you're thinking.
Yeah. And that would be really helpful with catastrophizing, because
Mhm.
we just automatically believe our thoughts. We automatically believe our emotions, and they just become fact. And the
Yeah.
reality is they are often not. So we
Mhm.
can interject that. And I like that. Ask the question, do I want to believe this thing? Do I actually believe this thing? Is
Mhm.
there another option of something I want to claim here instead of this worst case scenario?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So So then in your healing, so as you started your healing journey, you started curable. First of
Mhm.
all, I want to touch on that, because when I asked you about your pathway, you answered that you describe it as the journey of being human,
Yeah.
which I love. And that just, I mean, the more and more that I look around, the more I am just convinced and see that every single person in my life has mind body syndrome. And it's not I don't even like the word syndrome at this point in time. I'm just like, you're a human, that's all.
Uh-huh.
You know, like, I mean, we were just talking about before we started this call that I have this cut underneath my eye, and for a long time I was like, could this be mind body? And then I found out that maybe it's not. And then I got in this call with you, and we're both like, yeah, it is. Like, just because it's structural does not mean that it's not caused by stress in some way or another. Um, and um, and so it's just the more that I become aware of how all of this plays out, the more that it's just human, and I'm no different than the next person. I'm just more open about it, or more aware. Um, so when and what made you come to that way of describing all this?
Yeah. I think it took a lot of, at first it was like, I thought, I kind of viewed my symptoms and like the fact that I was experiencing mind body, like once it occurred to me that that's what's going on, I almost was like, um, angry with myself for putting myself
Mhm.
through this, right? Um, and then the more I learned about it, the more and the more I worked with people, and I work with people in their physical bodies every day, the more I realized, like, this is like actually normal. I mean, not as like as it's like, oh, it's okay, or it's not uncomfortable and difficult, but it's kind of a normal response. It's normal for us um, to go there, to have sensations in our body, to
Yeah.
give us messages and things like that. And so I don't know, that gave me a peacefulness,
Mhm.
and it also gave me a new compassion for myself. Like, okay, everyone's going through this in some way,
Yeah.
and it gave me more compassion for other people who maybe I was judgmental of based off of what they were going through, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's what was
Mhm.
your original question? I don't even.
Oh, I think you're answering it, but so if this is the journey of being human, maybe part of my question is, if this is the journey of being human, then why are we trying to make the pain go away?
Yeah.
Which, Howard Schubiner, I mean, we know you don't try to make the pain go away, but it's still this end goal. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's not easy at first, right? But I really like what Nicole Sachs says. She says um, that this work is the cure for chronic pain, but there is no cure for the human condition.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're gonna have, and even Howard Schubiner, I did curable groups, which was amazing.
Right.
And Howard Schubiner answered a question once of like, I think I might have even asked, like, I feel like great. I don't have the chronic stuff, but I still have little things that'll just like tink, bloop, like pop up, right?
Yeah.
In my body.
Yeah.
And what do I do? And he said, you're a human, and you're naturally, you are sensitive,
Yeah.
and it's okay. It's okay for those things to come up. You know what to do when they do. So breathe, know that it's okay, and that's kind of just part of it, which is normal. I know that,
Yeah.
like, I think Alan Gordon even talks about it too, of like using what comes up as an opportunity to practice calming my nervous system, and
Mm.
maybe inquiring what's going on a bigger, more emotional level, or maybe it's just giving myself time just to be. um, so I think compassion for being a human is really is really
Yeah.
important, and that's been really fundamental in my healing too, of just, it's not linear. It's not like, oh, I'm suffering and struggling, to, oh, I'm perfectly healed and I'll never have pain again. Um, it's an ongoing life journey, you know?
And I think that's really important to know, because if the end goal is to never experience pain or a symptom, then you're always going to be scared every time that symptom comes, anytime any symptom comes up for that matter. And then you're going to go backwards every time. Whereas if when we're human and we do experience something different, or an old pattern showing up in our bodies,
Mhm.
if we can respond with that compassion that you're talking about,
Yeah.
which is a great anecdote to the criticalness that you were talking about,
Mhm.
then we don't get stuck in that fear cycle, the fear pain cycle, when
Mhm.
it's like, oh, there's pain. Okay,
Hey,
I'm human. No
yeah,
fear.
cool.
Done.
hmm Yeah,
Um,
no, okay. Nicole Sachs has like, I've been a big fan of hers since the beginning of my journey. And another thing that she's been saying, I think more recently, is wearing it lightly
mm,
or loosely, wearing it loosely, something like that. Of
I
just
think
like,
you're right.
okay,
Yeah.
something pops up, we flow with it. And we don't have to like fix it, fight it, be really afraid of it. We just like, okay, here it is. And same with emotions. Oh, I'm
Mm,
feeling really sad today. Okay, no judgment. Let's just feel it for a minute here.
yeah. Yes.
So it's
Wear it
helped.
loosely.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Hmm. If you were going to pick 3 tools that
Mhm.
you've used, if you could narrow it down to that, what were your favorite things for
Mhm.
handling symptoms and beginning that journey of healing?
Yeah. Gosh. I would say, well, first of all, I would say education and understanding what's going on. I
Yeah.
think that that's huge. And I know that
Mm.
for coaches out there, that's like the forefront of this work, right? You got to start there because awareness is power.
Yeah.
So for me, understanding this is what's going on and believing it was,
Mm.
I think, a big tool in and of itself, right? And it brought safety to me. Like, oh, I know that this is created by my nervous system and my brain. Oh, okay, we're gonna be all right. And then I do really like somatic tracking.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I do. For even now, when I like, oh, I feel a little something, just a little twingy pop up. I'm like, I if you've read the book The Way Out,
Uh-huh.
Alan Gordon's like, get excited because you get an opportunity to utilize this and like
Yeah.
get curious about it. So I really I love that. I love just sitting with it and just being like, what are you? You're, you know, going into the description of what I'm experiencing, feeling safe with it. So I do like that. And obviously journaling
Okay.
has been that's huge. And
Yeah.
sometimes you need a practice of it, like a devotion to it.
Uh-huh.
Um, because
Yeah.
that resistance will come up, and sometimes it'll be 10 p.m. and you're ready for bed, and you're like, we're doing it though. We're journaling. And that, yes, that has been really helpful for me too. So I would say those would be my top three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember all of a sudden the first one. Oh, knowledge. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just education and knowing. And yeah.
Did you have any, okay, in your healing journey, what were your, let's just say your hiccups, or what were the things that were difficult? And I'll give an example. Like, I feel like for some of my clients, it'll be the fear of the symptom is what keeps them in that fear pain cycle, or it'll be a fear that we're missing something that, some diagnosis that's not mind body, and that'll keep them in the loop, or a fear of emotions, experiencing maybe not wanting to journal or feel the emotions. Did you have any hiccups, hangups in that part of
Yeah.
your journey?
Yeah. I think for me, it was the resistance would come up and I would allow the resistance.
Yeah.
But what is that resistance driven by, right? So I think for me, it was a fear of feeling my emotions
Mm-hmm.
and like just being in total, like holding space for them.
Yeah.
I also think that for me, a hiccup or hang up was thinking that I had to do it perfectly. And
Mm.
that actually kept me in a state of, you know, fight or flight in pain in my body, was
Yeah.
thinking I wasn't doing it right. I wasn't doing it fast enough. I wasn't. And that's also core beliefs, right? It's playing back into, you know, stuff from the ways that I have felt about myself in general. So, just kind of, yeah, finally letting go of like, it's not linear. It's not just like this, boom, perfect. There's a perfect way for every person. Um, so yeah, I would say those would be a couple of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's
Okay, so now what's that?
I said it's tough, it's hard work, you know?
It is. I was doing an interview on Thought by Thought Healing,
Yeah.
and a doctor said to me, like, it's easy, right? And I was kind of caught off guard because I was like, well, sure, it's like easy, like writing down and journaling or believing something is functionally easy. But I actually don't think this is easy. And I think that people who do this work are brave and courageous and doing the hard things. Yeah. And it's a little bit of an empowerment game over your fears, if you will, or your shame, or whatever emotion it is that you struggle with. Learning to be an overcomer, and that thing doesn't have to have that grip on you anymore.
Yeah, they say the answer, like this work is simple, right? We just need to calm the nervous system and feel safe, right? And not believe these scary thoughts, and express our emotions. But then the work to do it is not easy. So it's
Right.
simple but not easy.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. It's hard work, and it's difficult at times.
Because you're facing your fears.
Yes, that's nuts.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay, so let's segue just a little bit into, just tell us, okay, so you were a massage therapist. How are you combining those things, or are you doing them separate? Tell us about what you're doing now.
yeah, yes, thank you. I've been practicing massage therapy for over a decade.
Okay.
And I love it. And when I discovered this work, as we all do, we just like want to scream it from the rooftops, I think initially, right? Because you're like, this
Yes.
changed my life. Yeah, I'm free.
Yeah.
And I also was going to work every day with this knowledge, and realizing like I can't not, and I think it Tim that said, I can't not do this. I
Yes.
can't
It was
not
Tim.
be a practitioner and, not share.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was like, how do I do this? And so yeah, I found my path with it, freedom from chronic pain, and just learning so much on how to navigate for myself and then helping others. So my practice is sometimes it's separate. I have a lot of clients still that get on my massage table that they're not open to the idea. And
Mhm.
so meeting them right where they're at with that has been difficult for me, and also is a place that I'm learning to be grounded with that, and just knowing that what I offer to them is helping them in their life still, right?
Yeah.
Even if it isn't the deep work and the uncovering and the coaching, right? Which is incredible. But so allowing them to just receive a massage, great. And then I do have clients that solely want to do, more coaching work, because it's, they're already like, oh, curious about it, based off of me probably rambling a little bit too much while they're on my table, right? They're like, let's dive in. And then I have people that would like a blend. So they'll come in one day for just a massage to kind of calm their nervous system. And then another day for coaching. I have other clients that do coaching for 30 minutes, and then we get them on the table. And
Oh.
what I've really come to have like enjoy exploring is um, having positive experiences in our bodies, particularly when we've had discomfort, and we can tap into that on the table. So allowing people to just be fully present with the movements of my hands on their body, and experiencing that somatically like they do with the sensations that they are uncomfortable with, right?
Yeah.
So kind of guiding them through being present in that moment. And if sometimes we get, as a massage therapist, we call them a trigger point, or a tender, sensitive area. If that comes up during the massage, we work with that too. We sit with it, and we get curious about it, and we allow it, right?
Mm.
Um, and so, yeah, there's been a lot of just kind of flowing with my practice, bringing things together. Even for the clients that are like, I don't think I want to just like do the coaching. It's like, okay. And sometimes a little pop of something that they can take with them will come out that is helpful.
Yeah.
So
Can you talk a little bit about trigger points? And I'm asking just because a lot of the stuff we know is mind body. How do you sit with that? How do you explore that? What does that look like for you in conversation?
yeah. Well, I used to be like a medical massage, trigger point therapy, massage therapist,
Oh,
hardcore, deep
okay.
tissue, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I it's so interesting to have a different perspective on it. And I also believe that like as much as our mind body is a system, we still have a body, you
Yeah.
know? We still
Yeah.
have the sensations in our body, the tension, things like that, still very real, right? Whether it's, I mean, it is coming from the brain, and we can still tap into, you know, kind of the bottom up approach. Is that right? Bottom up
Mhm.
body
Yeah.
work with the body, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so we, you know, we do experience trigger points and tender points and things like that. And um I still approach it in a similar way that I always have. I think it's just kind of starting to like, it's important just to integrate if that's what that person is looking for. And um like we're doing the physical body work, and if you're interested and willing and ready, we're going to do the other work as well. Does that
Mhm.
make sense? So
Yeah.
it's like I still approach it in the same way on the table. Um
Because our symptoms are real.
because our symptoms are real, you
Yeah.
know, and there are ways that we can get relief, even if it's not the long-term relief that,
Right.
you know, we get when we do this deeper
Yeah.
work. We still get relief for a couple of days, and sometimes that's all we need. We just need a break. um that was a tough thing for me to like embody at the beginning of this journey for myself. um yeah, I actually was listening to one of I think it was a curable podcast, maybe. You know how all the podcasts and the information just kind of
Yeah.
flows.
Yeah. Uh,
um there was a doctor, a mind body doctor, that talked about that the struggle of like kind of wanting to impose all this information on everybody because you're like, you know darn well that that's what's going on, but you have to meet people where they're at, and you have to if they come in for a particular service or sort of care, and you're able and willing to do that, you got to hold space for people exactly where they're at, you know. And I
yeah.
typically plant a seed to most people at a certain point. You know, obviously
Mm.
building trust and a relationship is important to me. But then, you know, if it feels right, and even sometimes when it feels like I'm just going to go for this, I'm just going to mention something. I think that it's important because this information is, it's not as widespread as we think, and I think it's really important. So even just a little drop of knowledge is
Yeah.
important. And so I do that for most people, and then I allow them to kind of take it where they want.
Yeah. 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 And then at some point in time, whether it's now or later, they will start to think about it. Because that
Mhm.
happened to me quite a bit before I understood the mind body connection. Is like, as I looked back, I was like, oh, I think there was actually some people that tried to tell me this, and
Really?
I just didn't get it. It
Mhm.
wasn't even that I didn't want to get it, it was that I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
And that's
So,
okay, right? Because we're
yeah.
super programmed, right? Like society
Yeah.
says you got to take a pill for that, or oh, it
Mm.
is physical, it is in your body, you feel it in your body, it is your body. And so it's really a lot to kind of break down. Yeah, as far as what we think we know, you
Yeah.
know. So
Totally.
mhm.
Okay, so in ending then, what do you have anything else you would want to tell somebody that was in, let's just say, the beginning or the middle of their journey? What would you give as
Mm,
advice?
yeah, I would say, hmm, keep going, you know. And I really, because I think I started my journey without a real embodiment of compassion. And
Okay.
that is something that really shifted stuff for me, was be that that loving maybe adult that maybe you had or you didn't have, um,
Mm.
throughout the process, every step of the way. Even, you know, as you're experiencing the emotions and discovering all of this stuff about yourself, even when your symptoms pop up and you thought for sure they were gone, just bring some love to yourself because you're doing so good. And you're doing difficult work,
Yeah.
and you're a human being and you deserve it. It is your birthright to be compassionate towards yourself, and you deserve that. So,
Mm. Yeah. And the flip side of that is being mean to yourself.
yeah, and
And,
that literally doesn't help. It
you know,
actually is, you know, the opposite.
yeah,
So,
absolutely makes the pain worse and the symptoms become chronic at that point in time too. So,
yeah.
okay. Well,
Yeah. And one other thing,
yeah.
um, I guess try this work. Another little tidbit. Try this work, but don't try it too hard. Right? Don't do the Chinese finger trap thing of like pulling so hard and trying, you just want to like understand your expectation and letting go of you wanting the end result to be, I'm completely out of pain and I'll never have pain again.
Yeah.
And even though that's a byproduct that typically happens, that we get out of the chronic pain, not letting that be your drive.
Yes. It's too much pressure.
It is.
Yeah.
So
Having your end goal be to be out of pain is counterproductive for sure.
yeah.
And spending your energy elsewhere on living, on embracing compassion and empowerment and peace of mind. And I feel like I'm missing something else that I wanted to say in there. Oh, just looking at those repressed emotions, that spending your energy on those kind of things instead of on getting rid of this pain is,
Mhm.
yeah, very helpful. So,
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah, thank you.
your wisdom and
Mhm.
just yeah, I've just enjoyed and been thankful for our friendship and just the in the beginning, the desperate, what do you think about this? Well, what do you think about this? And
You want to practice? Can we?
yes,
You
yeah,
know?
so good. So
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been lovely and an honor.
Yeah. Yes, for all of us. So, okay, well, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody.
Okay.
I will see you guys again next week. And Mackenzie, don't go anywhere quite yet.